Here's a farm tractor that brings back the nostalgia days of the 40s and 50s. Quiet, efficient power. But listen to the 8N of the 90s. This one now has a 100 horsepower flathead V8. It looks just like a restored 8N, but there are several modifications. Owner Ron Stauffer explains.
The tractor is a 52 8N Ford tractor, and what it requires in the engine is an engine that has a side distributor. Is one way to tell if you were in a junkyard looking for an engine that would fit. It needs to have the side distributor, and also it needs to have the back of the block gear cut off with a removable bell housing.
An adapter kit is drilled and tapped so the bolt pattern of the engine matches the bell housing. A steel frame runs from the plate and wraps around the front axle.
It's 4 inches longer than the original ones, and that enables you to mount your ball socket for your radius rods going up the front axle. And then rather than lengthen those and fasten them back here where they originally did and bending them, you can shorten them, and it makes that real simple to put that on that way. And you also notice that this one here has a foot accelerator on it. The 2 or 3 that we have built up, we have built them both ways, one with a governor. The governor gets pretty complicated to try to mount it up underneath there and get a belt to drive it and everything, but if you were going to use it to farm with and put lots of hours on it that way, you would want to mount a governor. Now this particular tractor, the manifolds on it, on the engine was bad, and we couldn't find any manifolds, so we just came up with the idea of using some header pipes, which we bent and made ourselves. If a person was going to farm with it or use it under heavy loads, you wouldn't want this, because this is pretty noisy, and it's set up for this show, and it does attract a lot of attention having that on there. On this tractor here, we used a 6-cylinder Funk radiator. A person could use a car radiator, like a 49 or 50 car, and widen the hood. A lot of them was done that way. They widened the hood and made it set a little bit lower. And then we built up this dash right here. Now, anybody could do that by using metal, or we do sell the dashes also. The original Funk conversions that was put out by Funk had a die-cast piece here that raised the hood up a little bit. But we put a V-8 emblem off of a truck onto it, and then we also used 2 temperature gauges just for look. We got 1 temperature gauge for each head, and a lot of the guys tell me that raced these engines, that was real a good idea, because they could tell if they had a problem with one side of the engine or not, if it wasn't performing right. The oil filter, this is the original oil filter that was used on the flathead engine. Real easy to get to the dipstick. But another thing that's a good idea if you're going to do one of these conversions is to find you a step-up transmission, which gives you another 4 speeds and steps the speeds up probably about 30 or 40%, and that really makes it a lot more usable tractor, because you got plenty of power for the higher gear. Now on the radiator, a person could just go to the radiator shop with your original radiator and tell your radiator man that you needed a radiator that was the same width, but have him make it taller and thicker, and have him put in the 2 outlets at the bottom. And he needs to keep the outlets at the bottom as high as possible, so there is clearance underneath there for the axle when the axle rocks going through washouts and stuff like that.
This conversion sounds great, and even does some work too. Contact Ron Stauffer for more information on the V8 conversion kits.